Good morning, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for the Economist and our Hellenic hosts for this wonderful event. Look forward as well to exchanging and hopefully meeting one day the person who shares the floor on this session with me today. Mr. Andrews, you asked, of course, a very complicated question, especially to summarize in 5 minutes when we discuss the motive to dopes and what we can do to address that. At the International Testing Agency, of course, since our establishment, we have seen many different cases of doping. We have managed more than 1,000 positive cases. So it's a lot of different situations. And what we can see, of course, there's the reasons and the motive to dopes are multidimensional. They're various. There can be very personal elements for an athlete. And I think some previous speakers mentioned that some athletes are under extreme pressure to perform, to provide for their family. They may have an injury and want to recover fast. They may have sponsors or contracts to sign with clubs. So there may be a lot of personal elements for an athlete to do that. What we see, and this is maybe more worrying, is that sometimes this is not really a personal choice. This is perhaps the tip of the iceberg, but sometimes this is more systemic. There are people behind those athletes, different networks. This can be the athlete entourage, the coach, the physician, the club, some teams, and of course, history has shown that sometimes this can go up to the state, to governments behind, and other forces that push athletes to take performance-enhancing drugs. Finally, there's also some very situational factors. It may be that in some countries the ability to find doping substances may be also part of the culture, may be very easy, and of course, if an athlete, especially a young athlete, is exposed to substances that are easily accessible, this may facilitate doping. So we have to take that into account. Of course, that there would be many more people that can speak about that, sociologists that would speak about that better than I do. What we do at the ITA is, of course, we take all those factors into account to try and design the best possible education programs for the athletes and the athlete support personnel. It's actually very timely because we deliver monthly public webinars, so I encourage you to log into the next one, because it will discuss the role of the coaches in clean sport and in the fight against doping. And so we will have Olympians and wonderful coaches to discuss this topic, and so I encourage you to log in next month for this public webinar. You have seen also, I'm sure, that during the last Winter Olympic Games, unfortunately some sports performance were put on the second stage as there were a big doping case of a very young athlete. I think at the time of the Olympic Games was 15 years old, and so of course this triggered a lot of discussions regarding the role of the people around the athletes, and the importance to make sure that while we educate athletes, we also educate the people around them. So our education initiatives are of course focused on the athletes. We have to explain them their rights, the responsibilities around clean sport. We have done that just recently on the occasion of the Youth Olympic Games that took place, Winter Youth Olympic Games that took place in South Korea, where we were able to exchange with young athletes, and this is the best time to start instilling a culture of clean sport. And now, of course, as we're getting ready to deliver the anti-doping program for the Paris Summer Olympic Games. We have an education program that targets all the national Olympic committees around the world, to give them all the necessary resources to educate and prevent doping for all their delegation, not only the athletes, but the athlete support personnel, as I said. So, of course, for us, education is a key pillar of an anti-doping program. This is also a decision, of course, that comes from our global regulator, the World Anti-Doping Agency, and there is now an international standard for education that requires that education takes place before any doping control. So we used to, in the past, just test athletes, and now, before testing, there is an obligation to educate, and this is a wonderful addition to, of course, what we're trying to do. And perhaps as we have a short time for discussion, of course, the next steps, once we have educated, now I would say the more technical work starts with the testing, with the follow-up of the athletes, and you mentioned, I think, on the topic of the agenda today, of course, the technology, the artificial intelligence. You mentioned gene doping. So these are, of course, this would require a full day of discussion, but I'm happy, of course, to present what we do at the ITA in the area of technology, as there are many initiatives to reinforce our anti-doping program. So now we will be focused on the Paris Olympic Games as the biggest sporting event in the world, and it's extremely important for us to give everyone, the fans, the athletes, the confidence that there will be clean Olympic Games, and that if some are tempted to cheat, that we will be there to make sure that this does not happen. So, Mr. Andrews, perhaps I pass the floor to my colleague, and I would welcome a discussion if you wish, or if you have specific questions. Happy. In any case, thank you for giving me.
I will definitely ask questions. Thank you so much indeed.